Imagine the moment you realize the world beneath your feet is no longer solid. You reach for your car door, but the handle dissolves into a fine, gray powder between your fingers. You look at the engine, and instead of steel and oil, you find a hollowed-out shell, a skeletal remains of a machine that was humming with life only hours ago. This is not a failure of engineering, nor is it a simple case of rapid oxidation. It is the beginning of a quiet, relentless hunger that has begun to consume the very bones of our civilization. The structures we believed were eternal, the bridges, the skyscrapers, the veins of copper and iron that power our lives, are being erased by a force so small it was ignored until it was too late. It began in the forgotten corners of industrial shipping yards and deep within the moist darkness of subway tunnels. For decades, we viewed evolution as a slow, lumbering process, something that happened over millions of years. But nature has a way of accelerating when it finds a new, untapped reservoir of energy. In the heart of our most populated cities, a species of coleoptera, a simple beetle once content with rotting wood, found a way to bridge the gap between organic and inorganic. They didn't just adapt to the urban environment, they learned to feast upon it. These are the iron eaters, and their arrival marks the end of the era of permanence. The first signs were dismissed as a strange new strain of industrial blight. Maintenance crews in New York and Tokyo reported metallic rot on the undersides of suspension bridges. Engineering firms suggested it might be humidity, salt air, or perhaps a faulty batch of recycled steel. But the rot didn't behave like rust. It didn't spread across the surface, it tunneled deep into the core, leaving the exterior looking pristine while the structural integrity vanished. By the time the first warning signs were truly understood, the microscopic mandibles had already hollowed out the foundations of the modern world. There is a specific sound associated with this phenomenon, a sound that few live to describe with clarity. It isn't a roar or an explosion. It is a soft, rhythmic clicking, like the sound of 1,000 dry leaves skittering across pavement. It is the sound of millions of insects vibrating their carapaces as they strip the carbon and iron atoms from the girders. In the silence of the night, residents of high-rise apartments began to hear it behind their walls. It was the sound of their homes being unmade, a methodical deconstruction of the 20th century. Imagine lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing that inside the very pillars holding up 30 floors of concrete above you, a trillion tiny mouths are at work. The danger isn't just in the collapse of buildings, though that fear permeates every waking hour. The true horror lies in the isolation. Our entire existence is built on the stability of metal. When the iron eaters began to target the communication hubs, the world went dark. Fiber optic cables, encased in protective metal sheathing, were severed as the insects chewed through the barriers to get to the delicious conductive cores. Cell towers didn't fall over, they simply ceased to function as their internal circuitry was turned into a fine, metallic lace. In a matter of days, the digital age was replaced by a terrifying, prehistoric silence. Transportation followed shortly after. The morning commute became a graveyard of stalled vehicles. Cars stopped in the middle of highways, their fuel lines disintegrated, their brake rotors turned to dust. The high-speed rail lines, once the pride of modern transit, became twisted ribbons of useless slag. Imagine being trapped in a city of 10 million people where nothing moves. No trucks can bring in food, no ambulances can reach the sick, and no one can leave. The city, once a symbol of human triumph, becomes a cage. You look at the horizon and see the silhouettes of airplanes grounded forever, their wings sagging as the rivets that held them together are turned into gray soot. In the hospitals, the situation turned from crisis to catastrophe. Modern medicine is perhaps the most metal-dependent industry on the planet. Surgeons found their scalpels snapping like dry twigs mid-operation. Life support systems, dependent on precise electronic components and pressurized metal tanks, failed as the insects found their way into the sterile environments. The very tools meant to save lives became the first things to vanish. There is a profound darkness in a world where a simple infection becomes a death sentence because the needles and the surgical theaters have turned to sand. The hum of the ventilators has been replaced by that same, rhythmic clicking. We often think of disasters as sudden, violent events, earthquakes, fires, or storms. But the Iron Eater phenomenon is a disaster of attrition. It is the slow, agonizing realization that your environment is becoming increasingly hostile. You look at a bridge you've crossed every day for 20 years, and you have to wonder if today is the day it finally gives way under the weight of its own emptiness. The visual of a skyscraper collapsing in this new world is haunting. There is no smoke, no fire. The building simply seems to fold into itself, a giant of glass and steel sighing as its internal skeleton finally turns to dust, settling into a massive mound of gray powder that coats the streets like a toxic snowfall. The gray dust is everywhere now. It clogs the lungs and coats the skin. It is the physical remains of our history, ground down into microscopic crystals. In the absence of technology, the social fabric begins to fray. Conflict arises not out of malice, but out of the sheer desperation of the disconnected. Without the ability to broadcast warnings or organize relief, neighborhoods become isolated islands.
All right, lift it up.
The local community is all that remains. People find themselves rediscovering old ways of living, turning to wood, stone, and bone, the materials our ancestors used before we learned to master the forge. But the transition is not easy. We have forgotten how to survive without our mechanical crutches. As the major cities began to crumble, a mass exodus attempted to reach the rural areas, hoping to find safety in the forests and fields. But the Iron Eaters are not confined to the urban sprawl. They follow the lines. They follow the buried pipelines, the power grids, and the abandoned railway tracks. They move through the landscape like a slow-motion wildfire, consuming the artifacts of human progress wherever they find them. A farmhouse with a tin roof is just as much a target as a downtown office building. A tractor in a field is a feast. The rural escape offered no sanctuary, only a slower countdown. The psychological toll of this shift cannot be overstated. We have lived for centuries with the assumption that the man-made was synonymous with solid. To see a massive crane or a cargo ship simply dissolve creates a sense of profound vertigo. It challenges our understanding of our place in the natural order. We are no longer the masters of our environment, we are simply another organism competing for resources, and our primary resource, metal, has suddenly become a food source for a more efficient competitor. We watch as our monuments to ourselves are eaten away, leaving us standing naked in a world we no longer recognize. Observers have noted a strange beauty in the aftermath. The dust left behind by the insects has a unique crystalline structure. When the sun hits the ruins of a collapsed city, the hills of gray powder shimmer with a metallic sheen. It is a landscape of ghosts, where the shapes of the old world are still visible in the mounds of debris, but the substance is gone. Some call it the new wilderness. Others see it as a clean slate, a harsh reminder that our dominance was always contingent on the stability of the materials we claimed as our own. The sunset reflects off the silica and the carbon, creating a world that looks like it was painted in silver and ash. The scientific community, or what remains of it, has struggled to find a solution. Traditional pesticides appear ineffective against a species that can metabolize heavy metals. Chemical barriers are breached within hours as the swarm learns to neutralize the toxins. The evolution of the Iron Eaters seems to have bypassed the vulnerabilities of their ancestors. They are a closed loop of efficiency, turning our industrial waste and our most precious infrastructures into the energy required to produce the next generation of swarms. They are a biological feedback loop that we triggered and can no longer stop. As the months pass, the human population has had to adapt to a life without the hum of electricity or the speed of the engine. Life has become smaller, slower, and much more precarious. The great libraries of digital knowledge are gone, stored on servers that have long since been consumed. History is once again becoming an oral tradition, passed down by those who remember what it was like to fly in the sky or speak to someone on the other side of the world. The Iron Age did not end with a bang, but with the quiet, persistent clicking of a billion tiny mouths. Our data, our memories, our collective identity, all converted into insect biomass. In the final assessment, the rise of the Iron Eaters serves as a chilling testament to the adaptability of life. We built a world of steel, thinking we had moved beyond the reach of nature's cycles of decay. We were wrong. Nature simply needed time to develop the right tool to reclaim what was taken. Now, as we stand among the shimmering ruins of our former glory, we are forced to confront the reality of our fragility. The world is not ours to own, it is merely ours to inhabit for as long as we can maintain our balance. The very things we used to insulate ourselves from the wild have become the bait that drew the wild back to us. The lights are going out, one city at a time. Not because we ran out of fuel, but because the wires themselves have been eaten. The sky is no longer filled with the streaks of jet engines, and the oceans are no longer crossed by massive tankers. The silence is returning. And in that silence, if you listen closely, you can still hear it. The clicking. The sound of the next foundation being hollowed out. The sound of a world being reset. We are witnesses to the greatest transformation in history, a time when the things we made to last forever proved to be the most temporary of all. As you look around your room, look at the things you take for granted. The frame of your bed, the pipes in your walls, the device in your hand. They are all targets. They are all part of the menu. The Iron Eaters do not hate us. They do not have an agenda. They are simply hungry. And in a world made of metal, they will never go starving. The only question that remains is what will be left of us when they are finally full. Will we have found a way to build without the bone of the earth, or will we simply fade away like the structures we once called home? The shadows grow longer in the streets of the hollowed-out cities. People move with a new kind of caution, avoiding the structures that look too thin, too porous. We have learned to read the signs of the gray rot like our ancestors read the weather. We look for the telltale shimmering dust at the base of a lamppost or the sagging lines of a power cable. We have become a species of scavengers, looking for the scraps of the old world that are too small or too contaminated for the insects to bother with. We trade in glass and ceramic. We hoard bits of plastic and wood as if they were jewels. The loss of medical technology remains the most haunting aspect of this new reality. Without stainless steel, the very concept of a sterile environment has become a memory. We are relearning the herbalism of the past, rediscovering the properties of plants and minerals that don't attract the swarms. It is a slow, painful process of trial and error, a return to a state of being where every injury is a gamble and every winter is a test of survival. The isolation is no longer just physical, it is temporal. We have been cast back into a pre-industrial existence, while the ruins of the future tower over us, slowly disintegrating into the wind. But humans are resilient. In the ruins, new communities are forming. They are built on different principles, using materials that the Iron Eaters cannot touch. Wood, stone, glass, and ceramics have become the new gold. We are building smaller, more sustainable settlements, tucked away from the old industrial centers. We are learning to live without the crutch of the machine, to rely on the strength of our hands and the clarity of our minds. It is a harder life, but it is a life that is once again in harmony with the limitations of the earth. We are learning the value of things that grow and things that break naturally. The Iron Eaters have changed us. They have stripped away our arrogance along with our infrastructure. They have shown us that our greatest achievements are only as permanent as the atoms that compose them. We are no longer the architects of a permanent world, but the stewards of a temporary one. And perhaps, in the long run, that is a lesson we needed to learn. As the last of the great bridges finally falls into the river, leaving nothing but a ripple and a cloud of gray dust, we don't mourn the loss of the steel. We look to the other side, and we begin to figure out how to build a path across using only what the earth provides. The era of the Iron Eaters is not just a story of an end, but a story of a transition. It is the dark thriller of our time, a narrative of risk and conflict where the stakes are nothing less than the definition of civilization itself. We are the survivors of the Metallic Age, the ones who watched the world crumble and stayed to see what grew in its place. The hunger of the insects continues, but so does the ingenuity of the human spirit. In the quiet, gray world that remains, we are finding a new way to move forward, one step at a time, across a landscape that no longer rings with the sound of hammers on anvils, but with the steady, quiet pulse of a life that refuses to be consumed. There is a strange peace in the end of the hum. The constant vibration of the modern world, the white noise of electricity and engines, has vanished. In its place is the wind, the rain, and the clicking. We have learned to sleep to that clicking, knowing it is the sound of the earth reclaiming its debt. We look at the stars now, without the interference of city lights, and we remember that the universe is vast and indifferent to our monuments. We are small, we are fragile, but we are still here. As the morning sun rises over a world of shimmering dust, we step out of our wooden shelters and begin the day's work. We plant crops in soil that was once a parking lot. We carry water in ceramic jugs. We speak to one another in person. Our voice is the only medium of information that remains. The Iron Eaters are still out there, finishing the last of the skyscrapers, but they have no interest in us. We have no metal left to offer. We are finally invisible to them. And in that invisibility, we have found a strange, terrifying freedom. The world has been reset. The slate is clean, though it is covered in the ash of our past. We are the architects of the new age, an age that will be built on different foundations. We will not use the bones of the earth this time, we will use its skin, its breath, and its spirit. The clicking continues in the distance, a reminder of the hunger that changed everything. But as we walk together through the ruins, we realize that while they could eat our machines, they could never devour our will to survive. The story of the Iron Eaters is ending, but the story of what comes next is only just beginning.